Alright, the case halves are together. Now I'm going to start putting this clutch side all together. First there's a washer. It's got a couple holes cut in it. That's going to go over here on this shaft. And then this gear slides over top of that. And then this bracket goes here. It's got a spacer that slides underneath. Yeah, that's spinning good. I put some blue Loctite on both of these threads. Next I'm going to put in the shifter. So to put the shifter in, first there's this fat washer that goes down. And then you have this shifter assembly. So if I pull this assembly apart, right here you have two pins that have springs behind them. So you got to get those pins in, get those springs in there, and then these slide up like this so they can move in and out. And then this gets positioned inside of here. So you just squeeze this together and stick it in here, and then hold down and let, oop, see, I just had one arm pop out. So now I gotta get that arm back in. So what I did last time is I put it in upside down. These actually have to go down facing into here. And just like that. So now we've got two holes at the bottom of this that can only go over these two holes one way because they're off center. So I'm going to stick my bolt through now, which is this weird looking bolt. In hopes that that'll hold this all together so it don't come apart. There we go. Just kind of, I'm not pushing down on the bolt, I'm pushing down on the top little gear here, just trying to get that to line up. And then screw your bolt down while holding pressure down here so this doesn't pop up and you lose your springs. And then down here there's a little arm that engages. So I'm going to slide that, and it has a spring that catches over a little lip that's underneath of this gear. So I got to slide this spring over that lip. Perfect. Now this bracket goes on okay, that was a total pain. Now the two screws that go in here and go in there, it says online to put thread lock on there. So I'm just going to put a small amount on each one. This shifter just slides through this bottom hole. You can push it down and then line it up with that little stud that sticks up in there, and it should sit in the center. Well, it should sit in the center of this shift drum gear. Alright, I just sorted through my 2 buckets of bolts to try and figure out what one goes here, and I think I got it found out. So now I'm going to put this in here. So now we need to put on the gears that go straight on the crankshaft. First goes on the gear that runs the timing chain. And then you're going to want to put your cotter key into place. And then you want to put your timing chain on. Then goes your oil pump drive gear. This gets installed with the side that has the cut in, goes towards the motor. Now goes your last gear. Now this one, this side with the cut, goes on the outside. And then a washer and your nut to hold it all together. I still have to find that in my buckets of bolts. So I'm currently waiting on this reverse thread nut to come in the mail because it was missing with all of my bolts. I could put the clutch stuff together and I could put this Kickstarter in, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it around and work on getting the flywheel and magneto on. So this is actually really dirty on the inside, so I'm just going to go through and clean it all up. Alright, this is all cleaned up now. I made sure there wasn't any metal in there. Now my key is already installed. So all I have to do is line this little groove up with the key. There we go, just like that. Now this nut goes on. Next, there should be 2 locating dowels, one up here on the top and one that goes down on the bottom. My bottom one is still a part of my cover here. So everything's already in and installed into this cover, so I just need to put a gasket on, get this cover put on, and should be it. Okay, I got my gasket on right here. Got it on the top and bottom. I actually put that locating dowel, oh that's cool, in here on the bottom so that everything will be held together nice and straight. And it holds the gasket on there good. So now, just flip this over. Just like that. Now just get these bolts installed. It's good to go. There we go. Now all these bolts are in. That's all together. And we need that because we need this cap off and this cap off right here for when we set the timing when we put the head together. Now I put my washer on there. And then last, the reverse thread nut. I'm sure that has a torque spec, but my spec is going to be Ugga Dugga. There we go. To do this right, you would put your clutch on, and then you would stick something between these gears and your clutch gears like a rag, and then get a torque wrench on this, look up the torque spec, and then torque this nut down. But I Ugga Dugga it on there. I don't think it's going to come off. Now for the kickstart gear, there's a C-clip right here on the very end, and then a washer, and then a spring behind that, and that kind of goes in and out. Then behind there, you have this gear that can slide down with the spring. So essentially, that gear will stay still, and this top part can spin, and then when they grab, it's all together as a unit, but this gear can spin this way. So the gear can spin to the left, but it can't spin to the right without spinning all of it. And then on top of this gear, there's this hole. So that's where your Kickstarter spring right here will slide into that hole. Like that. And then I'm not sure if this middle piece is supposed to be here or not. I gotta look that up. And then this slides in. It slides in right down here. There is, if somebody took this off, there is 2 Allen bolts and like a little keeper arm right here. But this will slide in. I think this little tab on this gear actually catches on that keeper. So you want to have that to the downside of that keeper. So you should be able to spin this one way and then not the other way. And with this spring in that hole, now I gotta bend this tab of the spring down into this hole right here. And now that that is installed, this actually free spins both ways. And it looks like this piece in the middle that I didn't know if it was supposed to go there, it looks like it does go here, and that little groove that's cut in it actually slides over where the spring goes into this shaft. And the screw on the end is for the Kickstarter. So I kick it over, it spins, then it comes back without spinning. Now to install the clutch, we've got a washer that goes over here first, and then a bushing that slides over. Then the clutch basket, which can kind of be tricky to get on because you got to line it up with that gear over here, and you got to line it up with this gear right here. Oh, there we go. And then there's another washer Then your plate. Friction plate, and then a little disc. And then another plate. And another disc. And then you're just going to keep swapping back and forth between plates and discs until this is full. Inside of here goes this other washer. It's kind of got grooves cut in it. I believe it's for locking the nut. Then here's the nut. This one's a standard righty-tighty. Now this nut gets torqued to 30 foot-pounds. Then you're going to take your least favorite screwdriver or whatever and bend one part of this inner washer up and around one of the sides of this nut to hold it in place. Now we got this little push rod, and then there's a bearing that slides over that. And then there's a washer. Then that slides on the inside of this plate and sticks out. Then you can stick this plate over the bolt holes. Then your 6 springs. Now I dig through my bucket of bolts to try and find all the bolts for these. Alright, so I found exactly 6 of these, and the washers are built into them. So I kind of figured this is where they're supposed to go, which was surprising that I actually found the right stuff. Now these bolts get torqued down to 3 to 4 foot-pounds. My torque wrench only goes down to 5, so I'm setting them at 5, unfortunately. Okay, so now I have the clutch on, everything on this side of the motor is all together. I'm going to wait before I put this cover on this side of the motor to do the top end. So when I get this top end together and I go to set the timing on the valves, then I will put it all together. But what I see happen a lot of the time is this chain slips. So I can just spin this chain in a circle and it doesn't grab the gear. So you'll start it, this will spin, the piston will spin, it'll go down, but your chain won't. So I can pretty much just hold this chain in place and spin the piston up and down. And this timing chain is not moving because it's not grabbing the gears. So if you leave this open when you set the head timing, you can make sure that this chain down in this hole is grabbing the gears perfectly, which is kind of tricky to get it to grab just right. So now I've got it grabbed. Now it's all spins together. So now I'm at a point where I can start putting this top end together. And then I got my base gasket on. I just slid that over top of the piston and got my timing chain slid through the hole here. Next, I got to go ahead and put the cylinder jug on. So I'm going to compress the rings with my fingers and kind of wrestle this thing down and then feed the chain up through this hole right here. Okay, got the piston in there, got the rings in there all good. That took a couple minutes of fighting it. I got the chain up here. I'm gonna stick my hammer through the chain to kind of hold it up from falling. And then I need to put in these two nuts. Now that the cylinder is all together, I got those two nuts tightened down on the side. I've got to slide this cam chain guide into the hole. And then there's two little catch pieces right here that goes into this slot right here. And then the bottom end goes down into here. So now I'm going to put the head gasket on. Okay, that's kind of tricky, but I got everything lined up. I stuck a screwdriver through the timing chain to kind of hold it so it don't fall. Alright, I got my 1, 2, 3, 4 head bolts in, and I'm going to go ahead and torque them down. So I got the timing all set. I slid the cam in here, and then after getting the cam slid most of the way over, I put the chain on over top of the cam and then slid the sprocket in, and I had to do it in that order to get the chain to go over the sprocket because it's super tight tolerance to get this chain on. After I did that, I was able to spin the chain and the cam together because it was not grabbing on this bottom gear down here. And being able to spin it up here, I was able to get it set and lined up with this pin on the cam right there. So this sprocket slides over this little like nipple that sticks out, and that's what holds it in place. So you need this to be straight flush across, and at the same time you need to make sure that it grabs the gears down in there so the chain isn't slipping. And down in here, that T mark needs to be lined up. So you line this T mark up by spinning the motor over to get it on top dead center. Make sure that's grabbing all of your teeth. This is flush. You got the sprocket pushed through the nipple, and then you tighten the two bolts down that hold this cam sprocket onto the cam. And after you get those two bolts tightened down, there's this little keeper that runs around, and you need to bend the tab over. Alright, it's time to put the valve cover on. If you don't already have your engine rotated over so that the two cam lobes are face down, you need to do that. So you can do that by opening up the inspection port on the side of the motor and then just cranking the Kickstarter over to top dead center, or you can turn the crank right here through this hole. So I've already got my two cam lobes down. If they're not down, you'll fight with trying to get this cover on. It won't go all the way down because you'll be fighting with the springs. So at this point, you want to go through and make sure there's no oil or anything on the surface of the head. And then you want to make sure there's no oil on the seating surface. And then just coat her up with some silicone. Alright, I got this all sealed up. I got a layer all the way around here. My valves are facing down. I go ahead, flip it over, slide it on, kind of push it down to get those little locking pins. Sometimes are a pain to get in the hole. There we go. Now most of these bolts that go on the outside have the number 9 on them. These two long ones, they go on this side, so the Kickstarter side, and they go way down into the bottom. They actually have a number 10 on mine. And then these ones will all have a number 9 on them. And then on the inside, right here, and up on the top also, these bolts don't have a number on them. They just have like 3 little dash marks. So that goes in there, another one up top. And then this one down here is a little bit shorter than the rest. I'm going to go ahead and tighten all those up. Alright, now I'm setting the valves on the intake side. I've got the intake air boot right here. The spec says 0.05 to 0.1. I have 0.06. I also have 0.1 and a 0.08 in the middle of those. So right now I'm going to slide, see if the 0.06 slides in. Yep, it slides in easy. And then I'm going to check the 0.1. Yep, 0.1 slides in easy, so I need to tighten these up. So in order to do that, I need to loosen up these two nuts. I'm going to spin this little bolt down to where I get it set perfect, and then I'm going to hold the bolt and lock the nuts into place. Alright, so I'm going to take the 0.1, which is on the high end of the spec, and I can't get it in there. I'm going to take the 0.08, and I can just barely slide it in there with some resistance. And then the 0.06 is nice and smooth. So that's in spec. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to get this one set. Exhaust side's pretty much the same deal, except for we're going for 0.08 to 0.13. So I'll get my 0.08 gauge out. And then I need to find my 0.13 right here. So my 0.08 should be able to make it through. My 0.1 should be able to make it through, but I don't want my 0.13 to make it through. So it's kind of like a go, go, no go. So same thing, loosen the nut, slide them in here, adjust the nut if needed. So right now, I'll go to the high end, the 0.13, and that slides in to both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjust them. The intake is set, the exhaust is set, put my caps on. I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to install this into the bike.